Okay, so let's start. So dear participants, this is my pleasure to moderate this first plenary session. So this session really aims at setting the scene, giving the what, who, how, giving you an overview of IDAC missions and objectives, our main achievements since 2018. And we will also give the floor to the working group representatives, so you have an idea of the scope of our work and how it is organized. To do so, I have the pleasure to introduce you one representative of the institutions that compose the Alliance, starting with Piotr Huchno, team leader at the Statistical Office of the European Union at Eurostat. Lucia Hug, who represents UNICEF. She's Statistics and Monitoring Specialist at the UNICEF Division of Data, Analytics, Planning and Monitoring. Tae-Hoon Lee is a Data, Innovation and Capacity Development Officer at IOM. And Tarek Abu Shabak, no need to introduce you, Tarek. You're a Chief Statistician at UNHCR. And myself, I'm Cécile Taureau, representing the OECD, working as a data and policy analyst at the International Migration Division at the OECD. So we'll start with giving you an overview of the global trends, and I'll pass the floor to Piotr. If you can put the slides on the screen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cécile. Good morning, everyone. I work in the Eurostat Migration Population Unit, and we also very much involved in the developments of the statistics in this area. We have heard already in the first session that there are trends showing that there is an increasing number of children on the move globally. But we also heard that actually there are even more data gaps. So with this few slides, just 4 slides showing you the recent trends on the basis of that what we know. Yes, please. Next slide. So in 2020, the world has recorded 281 million international migrants, and this includes nearly 36 million children, so minors under the age of 18. This is the highest number ever we recorded. This represents about 1 in 66 children globally living outside the country of birth. The number of children rose by 50%. We heard that already this morning, between 1990 and 2020, so within 30 years. I think we lost the presentation. Yes, thank you. So the number within this 30 years, the number increased from 24 to 36 million. It's really huge, big number. And like adults, children mostly follow the adults, most children migrate within the region of birth. Also, it is important to say that over half of the international migrants globally remain in their region, with 25% of all migrants born in Asia residing within Asia and 60% of Europeans migrating within Europe. Asia has also the largest number of migrants leaving their region of birth. By 2020, 46 million migrants born in Asia had moved to countries outside the region, outside of Asia, reflecting its significant population migration dynamics. Next slide. The number of children displaced due to conflict, violence, and human rights violations, both internally and across borders, continues to rise, as we already heard. increasing from nearly 19 million in 2010 to more than 47 million in 23. And there are no signs of slowing down. By the end of 23, children represented over 2 out of 5 of the world's 117 million forcibly displaced people. This includes an estimated 28 million internally displaced children, 50 million children displaced across borders under UNHCR mandate, 2 million children actively seeking asylum, and in addition to that, we have recorded 1.7 million Palestine refugees, children which are registered under UNRWA. Half of the world's refugee children originate from 3 countries: Syria, Venezuela, and Afghanistan. Refugees often find asylum close to their country of origin, and worldwide, nearly 70% of all the refugees find asylum in the countries directly bordering their region. And 2 out of 3 children, refugee children, are in Asia and Africa. Next slide, please. The number of internally displaced children grown significantly from around 10 million in 2009 to nearly 32 million in 23, with more than a half occurring in sub-Saharan Africa. Conflict and violence are the primary drivers, with child IDPs rising steadily from 11 million in 2009 to around 30 million in 23. But as we heard, disasters, which includes also weather, is increasingly playing a major role. Since IDMC monitoring began in 2019, disaster-related child IDPs increased from 2 million to 3.1 million in 23. That's about data. Sounds like we know a lot, but the truth is actually very much different. This were very broad picture, and we heard already in the morning that we need to know more to take actions. And as we see here, there are really significant data gaps which remain, especially for the age and sex disaggregated. And this is the basic demographic information we need to know. So nearly 30% of countries and territories do not have age disaggregated migrant stock data. 26% countries with data on refugees do not provide representative data on age. More than a half, 56%, countries and territories with conflict-related IDPs do not provide representative data on age either. So addressing these gaps is essential to ensure more accurate understanding of children on the move and the needs. Therefore, significant efforts are still required to close these gaps and improve the availability of comprehensive and disaggregated data. With this, I think I pass the floor back to Cecile.
Thank you, Piotr, for presenting this, the global trends, I would say. So still a lot to do. Lucia will now present you how we plan to move on, how we start in 2018. She will present the mission, the objective of IDAC. Lucia, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Cecile, and I'm very excited to be here today. And hello, everybody. And I'm here to represent UNICEF that has been with IDAC from the very beginning. And so I'm just going to talk a little bit about the mission and the objectives of IDAC. So maybe we can go to the next slide. So the mission of IDAC is really relatively simple. It's to improve data and it sounds simple, to improve data and statistics on migrant and displaced children in support of evidence-based policy making and programming that can protect and also empower children. So in that sense, we have the IDAC that has 3 objectives under this mission. To achieve that, its first is to strengthen the national data systems really and build capacities to protect migrant and displaced children, to establish and promote collaborative, innovative methods for child-specific data, and lastly, also to improve the data visibility, the data become available, accessible, and usable. Not only they're just sitting somewhere, but people really have access and can use this data to make policy decisions and programming. And in order to do so, the IDAC was formed. It has a joint secretariat that you see here on the podium, which is led by UNICEF, but with, of course, very strong partners, which are the IOM, the Eurostat, OECD, and UNHCR. And it just really works through the working groups also that you will hear about later. So if you go to the next slide, a little bit more about the structure. So IDAC has more than 50 members by now and really works through these members to achieve their objectives. 25 of them are countries from all the regions in the world. We have 13 international organizations, including UN agencies, Eurostat and OECD and regional partners. And we have academia, think tanks, civil society organizations, and NGOs that support the work of IDAC. It really comes to the Secretariat to coordinate the activities of IDAC. And IDAC really builds on existing frameworks and work that has been done before. And IDAC supports the Sustainable Development Agenda goal for 2030 and the global compacts that go together with that, and other child protection frameworks that all call for data on children on the move. So it's not that IDAC just comes in a space where there hasn't been work, but it really builds on what has been there, but tries to bring these different partners together to achieve the objectives. And of course, IDAC is growing. I understand from the last meeting, it was less than 50. Now we are above 50 members, and hopefully we will have more countries that join IDAC to support the work, because only through collaborative efforts we can achieve this very challenging task to get better data on children. So maybe we go to the next slide just to talk a little bit about how IDAC came together. And it was really in 2020, just at the onset of the pandemic, that IDAC was officially launched. I think it was the last meeting that happened in New York before everybody was staying at home for a very long time. And it was born and developed in Morocco, actually, as we heard before, in 2019. And the government of Morocco and Denmark has supported the efforts from the very beginning. And it was before that, there was a data call that was launched also in New York to protect children on the move with better data, because that's really, without data, we don't know where these children are, and we cannot protect them, and we cannot empower them. And so since IDAC was officially launched in 2020, we have now the second meeting taking place, and in the time between, we finalized the terms of reference, got new members, and have an advisory board and all those working groups. So just with the next slide, I'm just going to show the working groups, but I understand they're going to talk on their own behalf. So there are 4 working groups that I'm going to pass the floor back to Cecile, I think.
Yes, just to complement Lucia's presentation, we thought it would be good to give you a sense of the content of the working group. And we would like to pass the floor to the chair of those 4 working groups, just to introduce themselves and more importantly, the work they implement in those groups, starting with working group 1, child-specific data system and capacity strengthening on children on the move. So I suppose most of you are part of those working groups. If you're not, I really encourage you to add your name to the list, to participate to meetings online. It's really well done. I personally participate to working group 2 and 4. Apostolos Kassapis, can you please introduce the work you're doing in working group 1?
Thank you very much. Hello to all of you. First of all, congratulations to the hosts, from the Kingdom of Morocco. And I would like to thank them for organizing this great event here in their country, in this beautiful city. So, my name is Apostolos Kassapis. I'm chairing the Working Group 1 regarding data capacity strengthening on children on the move. I'm here not only to present you the working group, but to please and invite you to join our working group. It's a very vivid and effective working group, allow me to say. our goal, what's the goal of our working group? Our goal is the strengthening of national statistical systems to collect, analyze, store, and make available high-quality, disaggregated, and reliable data regarding children on the move. That's why our first deliverable was in the previous year. We had a manual, we produced this manual. This manual aims to assist countries regarding collecting, storing, analyzing, sharing, and using this data with this specific disaggregation, not only regarding age, but also on their migration status, and to provide an analytical guidance to enhance the capacity to collect data on migrant and displaced children. Thank you very much, and I insist on calling you to join our working with more hands. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Apostolos. So working group 2 is about indicators. It's titled Child-Specific Indicators Development and Data on Children on the Move. Diego Iturralde from South Africa and Karima Belhaj are leading those groups. So Diego, you have the floor, and you have 1 minute.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for the HCP and the government of Morocco for having us here this week. I was just mentioning to colleagues that it was in this very same room that we conceptualized IDAC in 2019, so it's really nice to be here again. Okay, working group 2, we're involved with indicators, with identifying indicators that need to be collected, indicators that speak to the SDGs, indicators that speak to stocks and flows, and that are essential in terms of determining policy needs and priorities related to children on the move. So I'm very fortunate and lucky to be working with my friend Karima Belhaj from Morocco, so I'll let her introduce herself as well.
Thank you, Diego. So I'm Karima Belhaj, migration data specialist from the HCP, the National Statistical Office of Morocco. Happy to be co-chairing this working group with Diego. We work together on the expert group on migration statistics with other colleagues here in this room, with Cécile. Also, we co-chair the working group on indicators, on data and indicators on international migration. We developed a list of indicators for evidence-based policies, and I hope we will be able to do so with Diego and other members. Thank you. And enjoy Morocco.
Thank you, Karima. Yes, we work closely together on this global initiative. So moving to working group 3, improving availability of data on internally displaced children, which is also a really important topic. So I'll ask Christelle Casabat to introduce the group, and maybe Jasper, Link, if you are around. You are both here. Thank you.
We're both here. Thank you very much.
Let's say 1.5 minutes.
Right, we'll be very quick. So we are the co-chairs, happily, of the working group on trying to improve the data on internally displaced children. And I'm sure you all know this is one of the groups of children on the move with the largest data gaps. So we have a lot of work ahead of us. We are a small but highly motivated group, and we're trying to tackle some specific data gaps. Jasper, would you like to mention a couple?
Yeah, sure. Just to introduce myself, Jesper Linke from Impact Initiatives REACH. We do humanitarian needs assessments. And yeah, I just joined IDMC and Christelle co-hosting this group. And yeah, we're trying to make disaggregated data more available on IDPs. We're trying to work on a couple of innovative approaches, like nowcasting. That's, I think, one of the new buzzwords, but I think a lot of organizations in our working group are working on this. And of course, climate change is also an important topic. So yeah, climate mobility. Thanks.
Thank you, Jasper. And maybe a call to all of you who are collecting data, obviously, on internal displacement in general, to please join us. If you're not collecting data, but you're still interested and you would like to maybe learn how to do that, especially if you're a government representative, please join us. We need more forces on board. Thank you.
Thank you, Christelle. So, at last but not least, we have a very interesting working group, and I remind you that we'll have the opportunity to really work with them tomorrow afternoon during the breakout session. So keep in mind that we will we will work more. It's not just an introduction. We have 3 days to work on with these working groups. So promoting collaboration on innovative methods on child-specific data, going beyond mainstream surveys, census, administrative data, and trying to make the most of innovations, big data, and so on. So I'll ask either Manuel, Viviana, or Will to introduce the group.
Yes, it's Manuel here, and Viviana, and Will over here from UNICEF and Save the Children. We are co-leading this 4th group. We're looking at the growth that new data technologies are having outside. We've seen this year on ChatGPT, large language models. We are seeing all satellites all around and always wondering what is the role that these technologies can play in bringing into sight all these problems that we're going to be discussing here. How can these technologies not enlarge these data divide and data gaps that we're seeing here? Just to say that we're revamping this working group, so it's the right moment to engage. We're seeing a lot of work in other working groups that might have a lot to offer in here, and also want to introduce on our colleague Melinda Vansil, who hasn't been able to come here, but either myself, Viviana, or Will be here looking forward to hear from you as we are setting up the agenda especially for this next year to come, and really looking forward to hearing from you and your work. Thank you.
Thank you very much to the 3 of us for this introduction to this very interesting working group. So we'll go back to the slides. Chebilson, if you can put the slide again on the screen. Thank you very much. So I'll pass the floor to Tehun to present the timeline of activities since the first annual conference. Tehun, you have the floor. And a mic.
Thank you very much, Cecile. As Cecile mentioned, my name is Tae-Hun Lee. I'm part of the Global Migration Data Analysis Center, which is part of the Global Data Institute. And I have the pleasure of representing IUM today. And also given the very good, happy task of talking about what we've done over the past 4 years. Perhaps, this is a slide comprised around 7 slides of all of the different things that we've done. But I was thinking maybe instead of just going through timeline by timeline, I would just like to synthesize some of the things that we've done. And some of it was already mentioned. So I would like to highlight 3 publications that we've done, which really provided the foundational technical guidance and tools for the NSOs, for the government actors, policymakers, researchers, international organizations, and advocacy organizations. So the first of the 3 is the Children on the Move, Key Terms, Definitions, and Concepts, as well as the document entitled Data and Statistics for Children on the Move. So these documents, These documents were published in August 2023 and are packed with data, definitions, resources, and good practices, and encourages stakeholders to coordinate to improve the production, use, and sharing of data. And right afterwards, in August, no, actually this was in September, as Asbestos Apostoles has, sorry for butchering your name, has produced with the Working Group 1, we've published the Manual on Child-Specific Data Capacity Strengthening on Children on the Move. It's an amazing document that really provides a deep dive into the essential elements a practitioner needs to know in doing capacity strengthening work. So ranging from information on data sources to data protection to elements of capacity strengthening. Really, it's if you haven't seen it before, you should really check it out. It comprises all of the considerations from start to finish as to what are the things that we need to consider when we're doing data capacity strengthening work. So other publications throughout the past 4 years focused on bringing the world's attention on specific issues. So such as the issue brief on the impacts of COVID-19 on migrant and displaced children, which was published in April 2021. And there was the recent Data Insight report on climate change and its impact on migration and displacement of children. Yes, this is the recent one, so I think I'm having a bit of a challenge. It's just to flip back and forth.
I'm getting better.
So through these publications, IDAC has been engaging stakeholders through various fora and in various formats. For instance, we've called for more attention on better data for migrant and displaced children through side events in the 2022 UN Statistical Commission, as well as the 2023 IFMS, the International Forum on Migration Statistics, and through report submissions to the first International Migration Review Forum, which is the IMRF. And we've also participated in regional workshops and webinars, such as the African Migration Data Network. So I'm finished with the all of the activities. So maybe we can go to the next slide, which is so what has IDAC? What did we achieve through our activities over the past 4 years? You know, because we always want to look into the impact, and you know, kind of not talking about causality and correlation and whatnot. So we did a survey recently to all of the IDAC members, and I want to zoom into one question in particular, which asked whether IDAC membership led to changes or improvements in your organization specifically. And so the results, as you can see, is pretty encouraging. So 67% of IDAC members noted that membership led to improved availability of data disaggregated by age and sex on migrant and displaced children. 61% of the respondents noted improvements in their organization's ability to influence policymaking using data and evidence on migration on migrant and displaced children. 44% of IDAC members reported that their membership led them to new or strengthened evidence-based policies or programming that benefit migrant and displaced children. So there are definitely indications that IDAC's activities are having a concrete impact. Thank you, and I'd like to pass the mic back to Cecile.
Thank you, Tae-hoon. So we would like to have a few words regarding the EU partnership, because as you know, we received some funding recently from DG Int'l, and Tarek will take the floor to explain a little bit and to go into the more recent objectives of IDAC.
Thank you very much, Cecile. So I'm here to speak about the cash on the table. Next slide, please. So we are very grateful to the European Union. To be concrete, it's the Director General for International Partnerships, also known as DG Int'l, for having granted the IDAC coalition a 3-year grant. It's a substantial grant that will allow us basically to focus on the objectives of the Data Alliance for Children on the Move and improve data over time, and hopefully close some of the data gaps that we have already established this morning and will be establishing going forward in the next 3 days. So the objective is to drive basically global efforts, but zoom down to the country level at some point very soon to improve the availability and the analysis, but also distribution of this data, which is very child-specific and relates to migrant and displaced populations. We're very grateful to the EU for having basically believed in the IDAC as a coalition, and we are grateful to the IDAC members, many of whom are here today or online. Basically, without you, all of you here, this would not be possible. Next one, please. So what are we going to invest in as a coalition, as an IDAC coalition? So if you remember a couple of slides back, there were the 3 objectives of IDAC. Let me just quickly refresh your memory. One is strengthening national data systems and capacities. Another one is to promote and establish collaborative, innovative methods, as I've heard with one of the working groups. And the third one is to improve data visibility and availability, and of course, its usability. So these are the three objectives that we have in IDAC. So a couple of things that we will be working on in the years to come is capacity building, which is important, which means bringing it down to the national system. It's not about the globe, it's about the national system, national statistical system that is crucial to basically give visibility to a population group like children who are on the move. A lot of things hinge on frameworks, on guidelines and on guidance on how to do all of that aspects, starting from data collection, the analysis, the dissemination, etc. So IDAC is committed to produce a number of guidelines and guidance, and you heard already Apostolos, who has, with his team and his working group, produced quite an important manual already in this regard. We will also strive to promote data that has been collected, analyzed, and disseminated over the years to come to give visibility to this population group. This means children on the move. And that's why attending and promoting these data sets at high-level events and intergovernmental processes. Last but not least, we believe that obviously a new website is important because often people come and say, where does your data sit? Who has produced it? What manual do you have? What guidance do you have? And you have to start shopping around websites, left, right, and center. And we're trying to basically close this gap by setting up a new website that will go live next year in 2025, that will hopefully bring all of those pieces together in one consolidated fashion. What you will see on the next slide is the starting point of the website, but go to the next one, please, which is a mock-up of how the website will look like come 2025. It's going to be an incremental approach, so we're not going to live with everything at the same time. It's going to be built on existing features, on existing data sets, on existing contributions. Last but not least, now it's time for a video, because we want to give due credit to our collaboration with EU Int'l, and I'm asking Jefferson or others to showcase the video. Thank you.
At the end of 2023, conflict, violence, and other crises had forced a record 47.2 million children to flee from home. The number of forcibly displaced children has reached an all-time high. These children often face a host of rights violations in their day-to-day lives and are among the most vulnerable on the planet. In November 2023, the European Union granted 3.5 million euros to the International Data Alliance for Children on the Move, IDAC, to strengthen protection of migrant and displaced children through improved data and statistical systems. IDAC is a cross-sectoral global coalition that was formed to address the large gaps in today's data landscape on children on the move. Its membership numbers over 50, including 25 member states. It is led by UNICEF in partnership with Eurostat, IOM, OECD, and UNHCR, and works hand in hand with member states and other stakeholders. The EU's important support is enabling IDAC to engage national statistical authorities and ensure children on the move are captured in data collection efforts, providing policymakers the evidence they need to act on their behalf. IDAC is now well positioned to deepen its efforts with partners around the globe to produce reliable, timely, disaggregated, and accessible data for migrant and displaced children and their families. The IDAC contribution reflects the EU's sustained efforts to promote the well-being and protection of children everywhere in the world, including children on the move, regardless of their origin. This commitment is part of all European policies pertaining to migrant and forcibly displaced children. The IDAC Secretariat expresses its sincere appreciation to the EU for its generous financial contribution and shared commitment to protect the rights of children on the move through improved data and evidence.
Thank you very much to the EU Int'l for its financial contribution. And on that note, I shall hand back to Cécile.
Thank you, Tarek. A bit hard to continue after such an emotional video. But what I would like to do now is to take advantage of having my colleague here to reflect on the latest developments in their area of expertise, starting since we had this video from the EU Int'l, starting with Piotr maybe, and seeing it from the EU perspective. If you could maybe update us on the new development at the EU level, and then I'll pass also the floor on to Tarek to see on your field of expertise, forced displacement and state-led person. Where are you at UNHCR? So, Piotr, would you like to start?
Yes, thank you. I must admit it is difficult to actually summarize in a few minutes what is happening. This area of policy, but also statistics has gained so much on importance thanks to the IDAC. I must confirm that actually this works. The awareness of the importance of the data for the policy making has increased dramatically. This was previously the case for the refugee statistics and with the AGRIS initiative, and this, I think, it's also now illustrated by the IDAC developments. So in terms of the developments in terms of migration, I think Europe is not an isolated island, and the same what happens globally is reflected in the EU. Of course, there are different components of that. For instance, in the EU, the question of the IDPs, this is basically not applicable, but we have a country, neighboring country, Ukraine, that is very much affected by that. So, in terms of the migration, we also observe that it's constantly growing. I think now we have around 7.4 million children, migrant children, in the EU. There's around 900,000 children immigrating to the EU, at least in the last year. I will show also a little bit more other numbers, but in the area of asylum, last year there were around 250,000 children registered as asylum seekers. This is now, as in the last few years, the numbers were growing again, but of course this all reflects the crisis happening. So surely the European numbers are affected directly by the crisis in the world. So you see, of course, the impact 2015-16 Syrians refugees. Now the last 3 years, refugees from the Ukraine. We have, I think, now approximately 1.4 children that have been displaced from Ukraine in the EU countries. Large majority of them, I mean, large numbers in Poland and Germany. Some countries are a little bit more affected. This is due to geographic proximity mostly. In terms of the statistics, the data gaps, again, I think we are maybe on a slightly different position in terms of this basic information that we need: age, sex, citizenship of the people, and the reasons why do they come, and that we can possibly cover quite well. But there are other gaps, and they were mentioned in the early morning on the reception, on the education. We are struggling with having comparable data for the EU countries here, and I think this is something that we will be presented as a challenge for the upcoming years, because it's not just a matter of willing to have statistics, because of course there is a will and we want to have it, and there are known tools how to actually assure that. The troubles are rather on the cost side. Some of the actions are extremely costly. That's why we need a broad support of the EU countries.
Thank you, Piotr. And what we can add to this in the case of Ukraine, and OECD is highly involved in working with the Ukrainian government and bring some support. There's also the issue of the internal displacement, people moving to west part of the country. So we talking about global trends, but on the field is how many schools you need to have, how many housing issues, etc. So thank you, Piotr, for this latest development from the EU perspective. Moving to forced displacement and stateless person, Tarek, can you please update you on UNHCR work? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cécile. Now, if you ask a lawyer, what does a lawyer need to operate effectively? The lawyer will say, I need a legal framework to understand the terms of use, the legal parameters within which I can operate and I can interpret the law. If you ask a statistician, the statistician will tell you he or she needs a statistical framework, just like a lawyer needs a legal framework to operate when it comes to definitions, to terminology, to methodology, etc., to interpret statistics. The good news is statisticians around the world have done a great progress over the last less than a decade. There are 3 international recommendations in the area of statistics that speak to displacement and statelessness. The first one being the international recommendations on refugee statistics adopted in 2018, the international recommendations on internally displaced person statistics in 2020, and the last one of the trilogy, as I love to call it, is the international recommendations on statelessness statistics in 2023. Those are statistical frameworks adopted and endorsed by the chief statisticians at national level around the world at the UN Statistical Commission in New York that comes together once a year. Meaning all countries in the world, in principle, have signed up through their national statistical system to adhere to the principles on refugee statistics, IDP statistics, and statelessness statistics, which also means there's an obligation to some extent, even though they're called recommendations. But by and large, there's an impetus here to implement those recommendations, which means they speak to definitions, they speak to frameworks, they also speak to collection, they speak to the analysis, they speak to who to count, and that's important for children. Given that children are part of those recommendations, even perhaps not explicitly mentioned, but they're part of the population groups that are covered through forced displacement and statelessness. So within a few years only, these recommendations were endorsed by the national chief statisticians around the world, which is an important aspect. Normally, it takes years to get one recommendation through the national statistical system endorsed at international level. But within displacement and statelessness, 3 recommendations of that sort were endorsed. Had we come together 10 years ago in Rabat, none of this would be available. None of this would be part of a conversation. It would be an aspirational goal. But now we are past the aspiration. We are now into reality, and we're now moving fast forward. The good news is also, there's, similar to IDAC, there's an expert group that speaks to refugees, IDPs, and statelessness statistics, set up by the Statistical Commission as well. And UNICEF is happy to host that secretariat in Copenhagen within the statistics team, which means IDAC and EGRIS, as they're being called, they work closely together and will work closer together in the years to come to implement those recommendations. Because what IDAC does has an impact on EGRIS, the expert group on refugee, IDP, and statelessness statistics, and vice versa, of course. So in that case, in that sense, I would think that data will improve because the framework is there. And obviously at UNHCR, we are a huge advocate for implementing those 2 recommendations together with our partners, to start with the partners here on the podium, but also in particular here with national partners represented to National Statistical Office and the like. So the future is bright. The future is statistics, I would say.
Thank you, Tarek. Yes, we're both in the field for many years, many decades, and we can see, if we want to remain optimistic, we can see that at the global level, we see partners really willing to collaborate and to make a difference. And IDAC is clearly a good example of this. So, Lucia, you heard the latest development from Piotr and Tarek in particular. So what do you think is the added value of IDAC in this environment?
Thank you, Cecile. So I think in general, although we see all these improvements in the data, in the framework, however, the world is not becoming a safer place for children, and we see a lot of crisis, conflict, and disasters are tied to increasing levels of displacement and continues to drive children from home. So we heard earlier that it's over more than 47 million children that were displaced last year, and that number has been growing in recent years. So in that sense, given the lack of data on children on the move, this number is probably still an underestimate of the real burden that we see in children. And that means that these children are not counted. They are not protected because we are not even aware of them. So really, and often the first thing that shuts down in crisis situations, if in place, is the data system, the ability to collect data. So, and in some places, we don't even have the system in the first place. We don't know how many children are in a certain place when disaster hits. So really, I think the IDAC as a collaborative platform can help here really by bringing together these agencies. And it's not always easy for international agencies to collaborate and together with governments and academia and civil society organizations. I really think there's the strength of IDAC that they can contribute through these processes, learning from each other. One country that has a good experience can easily provide that model to the other country. So really we think countries can drive this, can help us if we work together, we can really make a difference in this challenging environment that we're currently facing and help children to be better protected and to be counted in the first place, and empower them eventually. So I think the future is bright in that sense because we are together in this and we can make a difference together. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucia. Yes, I would like really to emphasize this aspect of sharing good practices. Work on international comparison, it's not easy, so it's not a matter of comparing orange and apple, but having, knowing your strengths and being able to share experiences, programs with some neighboring countries or some countries who have some commonalities, sharing same issues. So I noticed also what you mentioned around capacity building, and Tarek, you emphasized the global initiative. So before ending this session, I would like to give the floor to Tehun just to engage more the audience here and give some reflection on behalf of the IDAC Secretariat and explain how IDAC member can engage more with those activities. How can we do that? How can we achieve good outcomes over those 3 days and beyond? Taewon?
Thank you, Cecile. As I was listening to Tarek's intervention, how the lawyers first ask the regulatory frameworks. So I'm a lawyer, and then I'm like, yes, that's exactly the first question that we would ask. And in fact, there is another global framework that's in the works right now. It's by the UN expert group on migration statistics next year in the UN Statistical Commission in March. There's going to be a culmination of all of the discourses over the past, I believe, 6 years or so, where statisticians, NSOs all over the world have gotten together and tried to come up with the indicators of how to conceptualize mobility, international migration, and statistics, and which jives very well with EGRIS as well as IDAC. And IDAC has been inputting into that process as well as IOM. We've been very involved with a few of the working groups. And so this will be one of the main recommendations from the UN system to the government stakeholders going forward in the next decade or so. And IDAC really has a strong role to play in this. So as we're providing, as all of the NSOs and as the governments are trying to figure out, okay, so what type of data and how are we going to be, or how should the migration relevant modules be modified in the surveys, in the censuses, in labor force surveys, and trying to incorporate those recommendations. We should also be, IDAC should really be a champion as a community of practice to mainstream child relevant indicators so that through these census and surveys, through administrative data sources, which we'll be discussing, and also innovative data sources, which we'll be discussing as well. Like how can we be champions to mainstream child relevant indicators? And so, kind of getting back to your question, Cecile, you've already heard from the working group chairs. Please be part of those working groups. Your feedback and your good practices it really deserves to be known, and perhaps you can also draw inspiration from all of the work that is being done there. And there will also be publications as well as workshops that will be coming forth over the next couple of years. You will be asked to provide inputs and engage with those opportunities. So please make sure that your work is reflected in those. And with those guidelines, with those manuals, just really get into the policy discourse and engage with your counterparts in the Ministry of Interior and Ministry of Labor, and try to use the wonderful resources that I've already mentioned during the presentation, and work with the IDAC Secretariat to try to figure out how to mainstream that in your particular context. IOM, for instance, will be developing new estimation methodologies going forward on children, missing migrants children, which we'll be hearing shortly later on today, as well as on, I'm getting the indication that I should conclude, but as well as on Nigeria for estimation methods for minors who are in domestic servitude. And so it's through these type of innovative, we're still trying to push the envelope on how to gain more data and how to gain more insights as to the situation of children, migrant children and displaced children. So we really invite you to be passionate community of practice and practitioners on this alliance. Thank you.
Thank you, Teun. So we're coming to the end of this session. It was supposed to be only an introduction, but we touch upon many, many subjects. But don't worry, you'll have the opportunity to interact within the working groups during the following session. Come the time of housekeeping. So you have on the screen a QR code, and please put your contact details through this QR code so we can enlarge the community and have more interaction for any issues you may have. Come to us for discussion during the breaks or during the following session. And at last but not least, you may have noticed that you all received a badge, and at the back you have another QR code where you can find the agenda. Jibilson, correct me. Yeah, that's it. So you'll find the agenda from this QR code. With that, we have 20 seconds more for the little break before we start the second plenary session. Thank you for your attention.